All right, welcome into another episode of Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of HockeyRoyalty.com. Tonight's episode is Return of the King. Drew Doughty is back in the lineup. Some people have been omitted. We will be getting to all the drama in Kingsland. So get in the chat, like and subscribe. You know what to do. Let's go. Boys. Good to see you guys. Been a couple of weeks fresh. We couldn't get on last week for scheduling, and we got to make sure we came in after a spicy game tonight. So get in the chat, throw some questions in there. If you guys want to direct the conversation any certain way, we're going to be helping there. But before we get into Kingsland, Joe, Russell, how you guys doing?
Doing good. Hockey notwithstanding. Doing all right. How you doing, Joe?
Kings hockey notwithstanding,
Okay.
I'm doing all right. Other hockey is going. Boys are having a really good season as we into the kind of home stretch here of the regular season. So we'll see how it goes. But I told Randon before we got started, I was like, thank God these games. I'm having a hard enough time staying up this season for the late game, for regular time for you guys, but for me, thank God these games are at 7 because these are tough watches. Tough watches. That's for sure.
Getting
Brandon?
kind of eerie feelings back to the beginning of the season, it feels like this trip or so.
I mean, we can get into that. I think I always felt I've been a little bit more hesitant to jump on this year's different train. But
Kings really in, and then they show you who they are. That's how it works out. Let's just start with the big news here. Drew Doughty back in the lineup. Let's
start with a positive. That boy, Randon. Let's go.
Back in the lineup. Number 8, the return of the King. One of the longtime Kings, cup holder, everything like that. Everybody knows who Drew Doughty is. Back in the lineup, and so much for easing him in. Led the team in ice time, game 1, and then 5 defensemen tonight. It was a brutal game yesterday, but we kind of expected some rust. How did he look tonight for you guys? And then maybe what is that lineup, or what does he kind of do for this team going forward?
I think he still looks pretty rusty, to be honest with you. I mean, it seems obvious that he's missed 4 months now. Doesn't kind of look like the same kind of Doughty that we've seen in the past. They obviously feel comfortable just running him out there to play his similar minutes. So all that talk about him being eased in was just fluff, kind of seems like. But I mean, yeah, in the end, Drew Doughty, this team's gonna have to lean on Drew Doughty to win games. When that eventually happens, who knows? But yeah, you're gonna need Drew Doughty to be the Drew Doughty that we've seen in the past. And these first 2 games, I feel like there's been a lot of rust that he's probably had to shake off. And you're talking about the 2 teams that you're playing against, the Florida Panthers, defending champs, and then back-to-back against in Tampa. There's not easy teams to go up against. So, yeah, I just think he's looked a little rusty in the first 2 games, but it's just good to see him back out there.
That's the way you ended that is where I'm at. I mean, the Kings. I mean, he's going to have to come back at some point. I mean, yes, he's rusty, and he's not going to come in and just hop in and be Drew Doughty of old. But you got to get him his ice. He's got to play because this team's not really looking for what are we, late January, February. They're looking ahead to April, right? They hope to be looking ahead to be playing in April. So they need to get Drew Doughty back and implemented. So it's just great to see him back. He's playing. It's going to take him some time to get back into some reps. I am very surprised that because he's just coming back, and this isn't, I mean, we'll obviously talk about the Brant Clarke thing, but very surprised they didn't go with 7 defensemen, just to help ease him back in. And then obviously today it gets kind of, blown up even more with the Anderson injury. So I don't know. I mean, it's obviously it's a good thing he's back, regardless of how he's played to start, which obviously, there's rust there. So he'll figure it out. He'll get there, and the Kings need him because he'll instantly be, their best defenseman in a couple of weeks once he gets back going.
Yeah, it's got to come back. You got to do some minutes. I thought the plan of easing him in was a good plan in theory. Hey, play him with Mavara on the third line, get him 10, 15 minutes a night, and they did that for Mavara. Mavara only got 10 minutes last night, but Doughty up to 25, and then tonight out of necessity with Mike Anderson's injury, which we'll talk about.
And he wasn't even supposed to play tonight either. Like the plan apparently was for him to sit. And yeah, he still played 23 minutes, 24 minutes last night, and then played full almost 27 minutes tonight. Like, I think what gets so frustrating following this team is the messaging that you get. It's just, this is what we're going to do, and then they just do something totally opposite of what they're saying they do. And I get it. Like, not everything's going to be fully transparent. Like, it is what it is. And we have mouthpieces, obviously, for the organization that throw out their news clips here and there. And we have to take it pretty much almost 100% because those are the mouthpieces that have the contacts with the organization. So it is what it is. So when you hear that, it's like, okay, but then when we see something totally different happen on the ice, it's like, what the hell is going on? And that's where it's like, that's where I get frustrated because it's like, okay, like, we're asking you, some like media members are asking you questions and we're trying to get answers, and it's just like wishy-washy in terms of the messaging. And like I said, like, you're never going to get fully transparent 100% from the coaching staff or team, whatever. But these last two games have just been like, I don't know. Like, it goes like one thing that they tell you and it's the complete opposite. And it's not working is what it is.
Well, and just to make things a little bit worse, a tweet from Dennis Bernstein, a quote from Jim Hiller on Mikey Anderson. He said, not an update because I can't tell you specifically. And the quote from Jim Hiller is, I'm concerned. So that, obviously is pours even more salt into the wound here for this loss and the whole LA Kings defense situation. Anderson, Gavrikov has been a pretty big shutdown pair for the Kings. For whatever that's worth. So that's a loss. You get Doughty back and it appears that they may lose Anderson at least for a little bit of time. So it's tough. It's tough. Yeah. I don't know. It seemed like a pretty obvious route to go. They seemed very comfortable rolling 7 defensemen. They actually seemed to get into a decent rhythm with it. Hiller generally seemed to kind of like it. He was finding good spots to load up with guys like Byfield and guys like Fiala, get them a little bit more ice. I mean, it really seemed like a perfect opportunity to do that. And they went a different route, needless to say, and a very interesting one, scratching a player that has been, one of the few bright spots from an offensive standpoint, particularly on the blue line.
OC Steve coming in with a $2 holler. Missing the playoff is the only thing for real change.
You think so?
Okay. I appreciate that, OC Steve, and I think there's a case to be made for that. Yeah. I think
Rob Blake has a decent sized leash still, I think.
100%.
Which is why if they miss playoffs, I think this is the point that OC Steve's trying to make, and I agree with it. Like at that point, ownership may not have much of a choice. You can sell, quote unquote, hey, we're making playoffs every year. You just run into the best team in the league or the best player in the world. It's just bad luck, blah, blah, blah. You can sell that, I guess, particularly, and, no offense to Russell or to the fans, but particularly to an LA market. You can sell that. LA hockey market. I think you can sell that. I think if you miss playoffs, that becomes a tougher sell. Now, I don't know, Russ. You seem to be a little hesitant that it would spur change, but I think it at least becomes then the LA media market may actually push or ask some questions a little bit more on that.
Well, I mean, like a lot of those questions that we're kind of asked right now were asked last season. So it's like
Fair.
we've said it, and I mean, Joe, we've all, and Brandon too, we've all agreed that we thought after what happened last season that there needed to be change, and there wasn't. So I'm not going to hold my breath if they even do miss the playoffs. They only had 2 extra home games, so it's not like they really gained that. I mean, there's obviously revenue to be gained from that, but it's not a lot. So we expect, especially with the expectations that this team should have and what they did have going into last season after the moves that were made. And now you bring in a new coach, you allow that same GM to hire that coach. And I don't know, like if they do miss playoffs, yeah, I would think that there probably would be change, but yeah, it'd be the same kind of situation we were in last season. And if we run with the same management crew going into next year, I wouldn't be surprised.
Resign Trevor Lewis and run it back. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they would remain, but I think missing the playoffs would be the stark thing that would be the catalyst. I think if they make it.
Sorry, Brandon. Lee just put in that trade for Philly in the chat. Kuzmenko and Pelletier for Frost.
I don't know if that's I don't know if that's done. I mean, I know that's what's being discussed because Kuzmenko was held out of the lineup. Pelletier is not coming out for the third period. And there's speculation around Morgan Frost being a part of this deal, but there's no official trade yet. Right now, those are the 3 players that are being thrown around right now, and it sounds like would be in it, but I that is not confirmed. Remember Kasperi Kakaniemi for about 5 seconds was involved in that Rantanen deal. So we'll see when it actually comes through, but there is something cooking between Calgary and Philly. Yeah, that much we know.
All right.
Well, there's nothing cooking offensively for the Kings. They have not scored in 8 periods, and in a puzzling move, have decided to bench the Clarke train, their best offensive weapon on the blue line. Still second on the team in assists, despite the removal from the power play, despite the ice time going down. Still second on the team in assists. It's just Joe, you're probably not surprised because you talked about that this probably would happen in the beginning of the season. And I said after that first month, there's no way that he proved that he belongs on the ice and for this team. And I don't ever since Hiller came out and said, we need him to play defense, even though he was like a point per game defenseman. We need him to play defense. It's like I'm so sick and tired of this organization bringing in Fiala, bringing in these offensive guys, drafting these guys, and then not playing to their strengths, not playing them to why does every player have to fit this rigid style of gameplay that the LA Kings want to run? Like at this point, I was fine with the Fiala trade, but why not keep Brock Faber? He seems like the type of defenseman they like, the stay-at-home defenseman with some offensive upside. Like, I don't know. It just seems very frustrating to me that the kid, and then the reasoning was even more BS from Hiller, like, oh, he's a young kid, is just, part of the game, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, he's 22. He doesn't need rest. He needs playing time. And he's been one of the better defensemen all year. I don't know. I could go on a rant for 40 minutes, but that's not going to help anything. It's just frustrating.
Yeah. I want to ask you guys, and Russ in particular, being a little bit, for closer to the team, for lack of a better term, but yeah, Brandon, this isn't all that surprising. There was conversations happening about what happens when Doughty comes back. I definitely did think that they would go 7 defensemen. Like I really thought that they would go 7. Clarke would be one of the 7. I thought for sure Clarke would be one to lose playing time. Spence would be one to lose playing time. Mo Ferrari would lose playing time, but they would play and dress the 7. Would still preparing myself mentally for a Jordan Spence trade. That's a separate conversation, but this is what the organization does. They still think it's 1997. This is what it is. They want to win games 1-0 and 2-1. And this is how they are built. This is how they want to do it. Brant Clarke does not fit into that because he is a little bit more of a riskier defenseman. And despite Brandon, like you were saying, he was for the part of the season, the first 10, 11 games, he had 11, 12 points. And it was right around then when Jim Hiller went on his bizarre, assists are not really what assists are made out to be or something like that, despite the fact that he also led the team in primary assists. It wasn't as if he was like they were secondary. So really strange. Like he's gone out of his way a couple of times. Bannerman, shout out to them. They wrote an article on this a while back that he's gone out of his way. I think Russ has mentioned it too. Hiller's gone out of his way to just tamp down, Brant Clarke, and it's just utterly bizarre. So you mentioned there, Randon, about rest, about Brant Clarke needs rest. This is part of a narrative that's coming out of the LA market right now, and I don't buy it for a second. So, like, this isn't Brant Clarke is not even rookie eligible, if I'm not mistaken. He's played enough games. He's played in parts of now a few seasons. So he's played lengthy AHL seasons. He's not. He played early in the season. He's like this. I don't buy this at all. I don't buy this for a second because it's very convenient that he happens to be scratched when Drew Doughty comes back. So if does he need rest, or is he just being scratched because, well, he's young, he is quote unquote not good defensively, and he's only offensive, quote unquote. So we're going to scratch him and let him watch from the press box. Because if he needed rest, did he not need rest the game before? Before Doughty was back, he needs rest now. That is a line. That's a line from the organization. Don't buy what they're selling. It's garbage. That's at least my thought, Russ. I don't know if you agree with that, but that I don't think that is a thing at all. Now, will he be back in the lineup Saturday? I fully expect him to be back in, because if Anderson can't go, but when I saw that about him needing rest or something like that, or a setback, like when Jordan Spence sat down at the start of the season, Jordan Spence was like definitively struggling.
He was bad. Coach Hiller said it was bad. He was playing poorly. Yeah,
quite clearly struggling. Gave him a puff, get back in it. I don't know that that's the case with Brant Clarke at all. I think Matt P comes in, Burrows going on, say probably Matt Burrows. It probably will be Kyle Burrows. Like, I don't know that Brant Clarke offensively, his numbers have come down. Not coincidentally, those numbers have come down right after Jim Hiller completely put the kibosh on the assists and everything like that. So I don't think there's a coincidence there. But,
stop doing good things, Clarke.
Yeah. But Russ, I don't know. Do you buy the he's a young player who needs a break garbage?
Well, I mean, I did until I saw Doughty playing 23 minutes and them running 60, and like if that's the case, and you want my whole take on the Brant Clarke situation, if it was like any other time in the season that they felt like, and they came out with like, oh, we're thinking about giving Clarke a little bit, like a couple games off, give him a break. He's a young guy. I mean, sometimes that's good for young guys. You have to learn that you have to earn minutes in the NHL. This isn't just like you're going to get gimmies. So I get that. But it's the timing of this whole situation. It's this timing of like, you've been telling us this whole time, like how, we're going to ease Drew Doughty in. He's only going to get 15 minutes a night. So it's like, okay, well, we're all thinking, okay, we're going to pair Doughty with Moverare. You're going to keep 44 and 84. You're going to have Clarke up there kind of taking some minutes from Doughty to kind of ease him back in. No, you scratch Clarke. Doughty plays 23, 24 minutes the first night. Okay, whatever. And it's like, that's why. And the first night, like the first one game, I was like, okay, whatever. It is what it is. But the second game today, it's like, why? Now it gets to the point. It's like, why? What are you gaining from this? Like, what are you gaining? You're trying to win games at this point. You've played 13 games and you scored 22 goals in the 13 games in January. You're averaging barely 1.8 something goals a game. That's not going to win you a lot of hockey games. You are barely in the playoff spot at this point.
And Russ, the argument. So when that gets brought up, because Clarke is, quite clearly the most offensive defenseman that they have, says, well, he hasn't scored a lot the last, 10 or so games. Okay. That doesn't mean Aaron Judge.
I go down the list. There's a list.
Aaron Judge will go 0 for 10 sometimes. I'd still think you kind of want him up the next at bat, though. Like, what is that? That doesn't mean anything.
I mean, that's a perfect comparison because Clarke is the home run hitter. Like you just have to go back to the game against Florida at home. 1-1 game. Someone needs to make a play. Who does it? Brant Clarke skates into open ice, finds Kevin Fiala. Kevin Fiala shoots the puck on net, and Kempe gets the deflection for a goal. You won the game because of Brant Clarke there. And to be honest with you, like, I'm watching these games and I'm happy. I'm glad. They deserve it. They deserve to get shut out. You want to sit your best offensive defenseman who's been carrying you statistically as a defenseman on the blue line offensively? Like, okay, this is what you get. You get shut out back-to-back games for the first time since 2019. That's what's going to happen. So I don't like, and like part of me thinks like wonders if this is really like Hiller's doing. And I saw some people say to mention or look at Bernstein's tweet. So I'll kind of summarize it for you to do today or right now. He was asked if Hiller should go to Rob Blake to ask for like help, scoring help or whatnot. And he was like, no, I'm good with the guys I have now. Like, I don't want to do that. That's like I get that. That's 100% coach speak. A coach is never going to say, no, I need new guys. That's like, you're going to lose the locker room if you go out and say, no, I need to get outside help because the people here aren't helping me. They're always going to back their guys. So you're kind of painting yourself into a corner if you're Hiller and you say like, okay, no, we need some outside help here. But like, I'm starting to wonder, like, is this really Hiller like making these decisions again? Because I know at the press conference, like at the availability that I was at, like with introducing Hiller, like they had mentioned, like, oh no, Hiller's going to have the final say in everything, every decision. But like, what are we supposed to believe at this point? Like, who is really making these decisions? Because nothing has changed in terms of this team's play style. I mean, yeah, they switched from a 1-3-1 to a 1-2-2. Still looks the same in terms of forecheck.
Augie Lenz is coming out and saying, hey, bring back the 1-3-1. Thank you for the $5 holler right there.
What's up, Augie? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like it's still the same thing. They're still trying to win the same way. And Joe, like you said in the past, like if not even delving more into that kind of strategy to win that way. And it's boring. It's not fun to watch. It's not exciting. And you lose games because of it when you go up against good teams because they're just going to sit back and like watch you not score because you don't know how to score. You don't have the players in the lineup to help you score. You don't have the defenders to help you score. And that's what happens. That's what happened today. That's what happened yesterday. That's why I had a little bit of a smile on my face watching it.
Yeah, and I want to say something because I know whenever this happens, you know, there's a lot of people I don't say led by, but us definitely included at Hockey Royalty, freak out, right? Oh. Quote unquote, on Twitter about Clark's being scratched, and there's all sorts of, you know, and there's then there's the I don't know how to refer the media people that are like, wow, this is not a big deal. People just get scratched sometimes. It's not at the end of the world. And they're like, I don't totally disagree with that. Like it does come across as like a massive overreaction to like one game in Brant Clarke being scratched. Like I can understand how it looks to be like this massive overreaction, but to put it into context, it isn't solely about Brant Clarke being scratched against the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Florida.
It's the cherry on the top of all these bad decisions.
It is the organizational philosophy, right? It all ties together. And it's just like, what in God's name is this organization not understanding? You know, did the Kings lose because Brant Clarke didn't play? Not necessarily. No. Like, could he have done something to maybe create a goal? Maybe. But like, it is the organizational philosophy that Russ, you touched on, and Augie, who, thank you again, who says bring back the 1-3-1. Like, this is how they think the game is played today. They think that you can win playing 1-0 and 2-1. I don't know who's making these calls in the organization. I don't know if it's Rob Blake. I don't know if it's Luc Robitaille. I don't know if it's Marc Bergevin or a combination. We know Jim Hiller's obsession from his mentor with Jacques Lemaire, who's obviously an incredible defensive mind. So maybe it's just the combination of how they approach it. But this is why for months. And I always was the one to push back. And I was like, well, maybe I'm the asshole here. Maybe I'll end up being wrong. Maybe this is different, but it never felt different for me. It just didn't. People talked about the vibes. What about the dancing vibes last year with Gavrikov? This is all the same stuff. And what was the difference this year was, and we talked about it, like, are you going to tell me that this team all of a sudden, which has been a 7.5 to 9% shooting team over the last bunch of years. All of a sudden, they're a 12% shooting team. If you want to sell me that they're better shooters this year, Fogel and okay, like if that's what you believe, I don't. I don't. And so I was like, well, but it's working. They're winning. Let's see how this plays out. The power play isn't working. Let's see how this plays out though. And then, we talk. What else did we talk about? Everybody talked about all the goals going in by the defensemen. What wasn't sustainable, Russ? Shots from the point that just found their way in. Mikey Anderson had a few. Gavrikov had a few. Edmondson have a few. That's not how you're going. That's not sustainable offense. Throwing pucks at the net from the point. Some of them find their way in. Earlier this season, they were finding their way in, and they're winning 2-1 games. Look at it now. They're not going in, and they're not scoring goals. Because that's their offense. Go look at heat maps. Go look at where the shots are coming from. Go look at NHL edge data and the low danger chances versus.
I wonder if it kind of clouded the power play success last year, because remember how many clappers Doughty had that just went in from the power play from the point.
Correct. And so look at all this stuff, and it's like this. They think shots from the point. And again, guys, I love the Kings broadcast. They do a really good job. Like I genuinely mean that. I enjoy listening to them. I don't want to hear get pucks on net anymore. Guys, that is the problem, is they're just aimlessly throwing pucks at the net. They've got to do a better job of making smarter decisions and smarter shots. And I believe it was Warren Fogle, Zach Dooley had his article of the pregame. I think it was a pregame for this Tampa game. And I think it was Fogle that talked about, talking a little bit more about like possession and actually, being a little bit more selective with your shots. Yes, that's the idea. Don't shoot for the sake of shooting. You have to shoot with a purpose, and you have to make plays to the danger areas and the slot areas, because that's how you're going to score goals in the NHL right now. It's not easy to do, to just throw pucks from distance and then hope for the best, hope for a screen, hope for a tip. Yeah, you can try to do that sometimes, but if that's your philosophy, it ain't going to be sustainable. And as we're seeing, it's not sustainable right now. Who knows? We'll see what happens Saturday, Carolina. They got some home games. Maybe they rattle off some wins. They've been a successful home team. I don't know what'll happen in the wins and losses, but what we're seeing, it really is what we have been seeing. It's just they were winning games 2-1, where now they're losing games in these low-scoring events. It's not sustainable. You're not beating good teams in a 7-game series playing this way. You're just not. And somebody needs to wake up somebody in that organization and let them know, guys, it's 2025. It's time that we start playing like it.
I don't understand, because when we were getting hope from this team and the team was playing really well, like it was the youth that was carrying this team. And we said it a couple of podcasts ago, the second most points of people under the age of 23. And then you stop with the Hellenius, you stop with the Andre Lee, you stop with all these young guys. I mean, Samuel Fagimo's lighting up the AHL again. All the guy does is score, and he can't get a cup of coffee. Yeah, we keep trotting down these ancient relics out there night in and night out and expect it to change. It was working. Why go away from something that was working? It made zero sense to me. Hey, let's just put Trevor Lewis back in there because he's Trevor Lewis. He's a husk of a hockey player at this point. He's not very good. I just don't know. How do you not see it? Why do the definition of insanity is repeating the same action over and over again, expecting a different result? This team needs different results in order to get past the first round. I mean, maybe we're playing Vegas and that might help us. I have no idea, but it doesn't seem like it just, I don't know. It seems like they're not willing to make changes. And we touted Hiller for being kind of that lineup guru earlier in the year, because he was using the 11-7 at his advantage by giving Fiala more minutes and Byfield more minutes. So we go away from that. We don't play Clarke. We put Trevor Lewis in. We put Hellenius back in the AHL. We have all these defensemen that haven't played in months that we're afraid to cut or send down because we need 19 defensemen.
9 defensemen.
How many defensemen are on the roster, Joe?
We have 45 defensemen on the roster.
How many NHL teams have actually carried 9 defensemen in the last 5 years? It's got to even 25 years. It's got to be in single digits.
They have to keep Andreas Englund around. I don't know what or why.
Why? There's got to be some salary cap thing or whatever. But
he has to fight somebody in March.
In all seriousness, I'm sure that there's some cap gymnastics that are going on that people smarter than us. I will acknowledge that. But boy, oh boy, it's just a tough look.
It's so funny because and I don't know if Nick Nixon is doing this on purpose. I think he just kind of just doesn't realize what he's saying, the irony of what he's saying. But it was funny in the game yesterday, he mentions, he says the Kings need the defenseman to start scoring some points here. I was like, that's a great thing to say and then he says today, it's once Mikey goes out, he's like, oh man, the irony with Mikey out and you have 3 defenders in the press box.
I heard that. Yeah.
You have no idea what you're saying right now. It's so funny.
I don't know. I mean, so for Clarke for a second, there was I don't want to say a report. Kevin Weeks had tweeted about, he's been being scratched, limited his minutes. Could the Kings be up to something? I don't actually think that Brant Clarke's being traded. I don't think that that's a thing. I don't know if either of you think he's being traded, but I really
free my boy to the team.
You know what, Brandon? You know what? I actually kind of hope he is. I kind of hope he is if he goes to a team that will just let him be free. Let him
become
play.
the Brant Clarke podcast.
Yeah.
Could you imagine him and Lane Hudson in Montreal?
Oh my goodness. But yeah, I don't.
All gas, no brakes. So that varied.
I don't buy it because it was just a couple of years ago where the Kings were calling Clarke's agent to be like, guys, seriously, he's not being traded because his name was starting to get floated around in the chicken rumors and all that stuff. So I don't think that fast forward, what is it, 2 years now that they're just done with it and they're going to trade him. I really don't think that at all. I think we were asked on Twitter. I think you guys were in it too. What happens now? The Kings have 9 defensemen. What are they going to do? And I said, I think Spence is out. I think Spence gets traded. What have we seen to believe otherwise? Mo Ferrari, the one good thing about all of this is, for freaking Christ's sake, finally somebody believes in Mo Ferrari. It took long enough for somebody in this organization to realize this kid can play. And I think he's been a solid addition to the blue line.
You see Doughty comments about Mo Ferrari yesterday? It's so hilarious. How he's echoing, he comes up, he plays well, and then he gets sent back down. And he's obviously, duh.
Almighty.
What is it about this organization that when people leave, they play better for other teams?
Are you referring to Dubois, who had another point tonight, by the way? Is that what you're
Dubois? You're looking at our boy Gabe Velarde's I think a point per game player this year. You have Arthur Kaliev with 3 points in 2 games since going to the Rangers because they actually let him shoot 17 shots on goal or 17 shots on goal. Yeah, from Kaliev in 2 games. So
2 games. No, it's got back 3 or 4. There's no way. I think he was scratched today too.
I'm looking at it right now. 1 assist, 2 goals, 3 points, plus 2, 17 SOG, 17
in 2 games.
Unless this stat book is wrong, but
that's crazy. I don't know. That's just surprising me.
Speaking of Dubois, he almost has as many points as Deneau and Byfield combined. The other 2 centers on the Kings, just for whatever that's. I just mention it for the sake of mentioning it.
It's total. So it's total shots. 17 total shots.
Okay.
Yeah. But all these people leaving, and it's they do way better in different philosophies that let hockey players be hockey players. I just don't understand what it is about this organization that people can't thrive. And I know Kempe is maybe the exception. He took him a long time to get his offensive acumen, and then he settled into as a full, complete player. And that might be from playing with Kopitar for so long and learning and picking stuff up from him. like he's developed into a 200-foot player. But at this point, I trade Fiala. Let's get a player that they actually want to play. Like he plays third line he's like one of our highest paid players. He's playing on the third line. Like
Do you think he wants to waive his no move clause to move out of LA?
To get the fuck out of this offensive list paradise? Yeah, I think he would. Excuse my language, but
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. It's got to be tough to get out of LA. I'd imagine once you're there.
I mean, I think his wife enjoys it, according to all their Instagram posts or whatever. But
I mean, I get it, Randon. I think I don't think it's an unfair point. I mean, I think you could also probably include guys like Dursey and Sean Walker's had done a great job. The situations have been good for those guys. So those are some good examples. I'm sure there's guys the other way that have left and not done well, but we're remembering the ones that have kind of burned us. But I get it. I just go back to next next couple Kings games, take when they get into the offensive zone, just watch how they operate. They move everything around to the perimeter, and then eventually two low guys will jump down to the top of the crease, bottom of the circle, and there's going to be a shot from the point or shot from the outside. Generally speaking, that's how they play in the offensive zone. You don't see a whole lot of, when it moves up to the point, you don't see a whole lot of the defensemen trying to be creative and making a play to the slot area, or maybe moving down with the puck and then going back across the grain through a seam pass. Like, you just don't see a lot of that. And I think it's very safe hockey. Again, throw pucks at the net, hope for the best, but you always got your numbers back, and we've beaten this drum for forever on this show that this is it's antiquated hockey, and it probably has a high floor, but an extremely low ceiling, and this is just where we're at. I don't know.
Well, perfect summary of all that is that tweet I shared with you guys, who I'm not like totally ruling out that it could be Joe's burner account on Twitter, but this guy at Boris471, long numbers, whatever, said a perfect example of this team. Jordan Spence, a supposed offensive defenseman, passes up a look from right down the middle and defers to Joel Edmondson, who fires the puck right into a defender's skate, thus ending the threat. Awesome stuff. Pretty much summed up. I saw that. That exact play, it so vividly happens, and it's like it seems like it happens like multiple times with this team where they're just shots, just pointless point shots that just might as well be turnovers. They're just turnovers.
Well, because then you see plays where, like, it could be Kopitar, a forward, come into the zone, they enter the zone, they maybe cut toward the slot or cut toward the middle of the ice, dish it off to the perimeter. And then the shot just goes from the perimeter, like, rather than dish it to the perimeter and then he can slide down and they try to create a play, isolate a D-man, make a 2-on-1 play, or try to make a seam pass or go across the grain or against the grain. It's like they take themselves, the few times that they get into a slot area or a high slot area, they make a play out of it, which isn't inherently bad, because you want, a slot shot to a set goalie ain't that dangerous of a shot. That's why a lot of people get mad when players, they think they overpass. It's hard to beat a goalie clean these days. Some players obviously are better than others at it, but when you see a player overpass, it's because they see a set goaltender. And the way to beat goaltenders these days is to make that sometimes what looks like the extra pass, but the right play, So sometimes there's reasons for making that other play, but the way the Kings do it, it's just, they'll move it around they intentionally try to shoot from the perimeter with the goal of getting bodies to the net. And you hear it in the refrain in the interviews, in the between periods interviews, you hear it post game, you hear it, with the commentating, they just got to get more pucks at net. And it's like, that is just not it. I'm sorry. And it's just not it. It's just not a sustainable way to create offense in this day and age. It's just not. But that is the team that they've built, particularly on the blue line. And I've always said this, like, offense from the blue line doesn't necessarily mean I need them to score, but you have to have defensemen that are able to move without the puck, move with the puck, create some plays in the offensive zone, draw attention to you, bring it back, make a play toward the slot area after you've drawn an opponent to you. They don't have those guys. They've got the Gavrikovs, the Edmondsons, the Andersons, who are they just throw pucks sometimes on one leg, just throw it at the net and hope for the best. And I don't know what year we're in. I'm sorry.
Yeah, majority of the offense is skater skates in, stops at the half wall, either sends it down low or back up high, and then it goes back up high, and then it's a shot. And that's pretty much the Kings' strategy. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Well, the King strategy might not be good, but it's always a good strategy to use our first sponsor here when you're betting on games. Our first sponsor is DraftKings. So DraftKings right now is somewhere that we like to use to get all of our betting done, and it is the official partner of the NHL. Playoffs, we're talking about playoffs. You bet we are. Get in the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning in playoffs. You can score big by letting them draft at DraftKings, the first place to bet on touchdowns. Ready to play your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score 6 or DraftKings Sportsbook app to make your pick. So you could either do like a Kelsey touchdown. You can combine them into a parlay for the Super Bowl. But new customers at DraftKings get $5 to bet and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you just bet $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill and Casino Resort in Kansas. 21 age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms, responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. All right. Well, Joe is going to be right back here with us, but Russ, so what going forward with this team, like, is this, you think this thing with Clarke is a long-term thing? Is it going to be back Saturday, or because they seem pretty set in their ways when it comes to playing certain players and how they view this lineup?
Yeah, I'm not going to hold my breath that he's going to be back in the lineup on Saturday. I mean, is there anything that makes us think that that's going to happen? I mean, I don't know. So I would think he'd be back in, but who knows at this point. But I'm kind of with Joe here. Like, it seems like the writing on the wall is that they're trying to move Spence, or maybe even showcasing him by giving him some extra minutes. Because I don't know, like Spence is he's a great young hockey player. Like, I don't know if he'll ever be like a legitimate, like, consistent top 4 defenseman. There's still some lapses in his defensive game. We saw it even today, where he just kind of got walked by Hagel. He actually and then he got beat by Kucherov late in the game too, coming down the ice. Seems like he kind of gets lost sometimes holding his own blue line. But it just seems like they're not really set or really gung-ho about playing Clarke and Spence at the same time. This goes back to last year. They just never felt comfortable playing Clarke and Spence in the lineup on the same game. And it's happening again this year when Drew Doughty's back. It seemed like they were really just kind of had no choice but to play Clarke and Spence with no Drew Doughty. So you got to figure out a way to do something to provide some offense. But now that you have Doughty back, I mean,
not too much offense, Russ.
We haven't seen Clarke and Spence in the lineup with Doughty. We haven't seen Clarke Spence. Has there been a game when we've seen Clarke Spence and Doughty in the line? Like, it's got to be less than 5 or less games. Because I know it happened sporadically last year with Clarke being up and down, and we haven't seen it this year because Doughty's been out all year and Clarke's now been scratched the 2 games that Doughty's been in. So I don't like I'm with Joe. Like, I'd be very, very shocked that if they traded Clarke. I just don't see that happening. But if they're like, I would suspect that there's a possibility that they might be looking to move Spence. And what that would be for, I would hope it's for another, like, maybe legitimate left shot defenseman who could skate and move the puck as well as Spence. Because if you're going to move a player like that, you better be getting a player who's better than him on the blue line like that. Because, like, if you want to roll out Drew Doughty and Brant Clarke back-to-back shifts and kind of roll them out there when you're trying to search for offense, I'm cool with that. But the left side, like, it's just kind of you don't really have anyone else there who's really offensively gifted like those two players.
Yeah, I definitely don't think I'm not going there again, Russ. I love what you're saying, but they're not going to go and get a left shot defenseman that can move the puck.
Wishful thinking, Joe.
It is. You know, I wonder if there's a you know, if Spence gets moved, if there's a forward that they're going to go get. I'm a little hesitant to. I just don't know. I don't know what this hypothetical deal is. Who knows? I mean, I also am not 100% sure what the
this just in. Frank Saravelli sources say the Flyers are trading both Farabee and Morgan Frost to the Flames as part of the deal.
Wow,
interesting.
So not official yet, but now Farabee's name is being.
These moves lately have been wild. These aren't just like these are big time deals going down. I love it.
I don't know. I mean, and then there's a I see another tweet from a Flyers beat writer, Charlie O'Connor, that says Morgan Frost didn't feel good. He said he tried to play through it, but he couldn't play through it. So maybe he wasn't part of a trade. So I don't know. I guess we'll see what actually happens and what eventually comes through this, because there's still conflicting information, I think. But I guess the other kind of going along this kind of trade conversation here is, I don't know, like, let's say hypothetically the Kings add a scoring forward, whatever that means, pick your name, whatever. Like, does that matter? Because if the Kings don't change stylistically, does it really matter? Like, I think it could help the power play if they get the right type of player to help the power play. That could matter. But if the 5-on-5 play style is still the 5-on-5 play style, and we want to get shots from the point and hope for the best, does it matter? I don't know. I'm not sure that it does. Or at least in a needle moving way.
Yeah.
Like,
does adding like a Kyle Palmieri make him a legitimate contender?
Right. Like,
or even a Brock Besser. Would Brock Besser make them a legitimate contender?
Let's and I know this wouldn't happen because I don't believe that these two teams would make a trade with each other of this magnitude, but let's, for sake of a conversation.
Being 2 points away in the standings, by the way.
Correct. And Calgary, it could be 1 point after tonight, by the way. If Jordan Spence for Brock Besser makes a lot of sense from like a team's needs and all that stuff.
Teams, yeah.
But like, does Brock Besser in this Kings style system really matter? Like, does that put them over the first round hump? I don't know that it does. Like, maybe he helps the power play though. That could matter, but I don't know that it moves the needle enough. That's where I'm at with this right now. Like, I don't think Jim Hiller's all that mad right now. They're losing games, 1-2. I mean, the empty netters, but 1-0, 2-0. They're not giving up goals. I think he'd rather lose 1-0 than win 6-5.
Yep.
So,
yeah, I mean, I was watching the game today, and I'm thinking, like, I don't even know if I need to listen to the availability, because I know what he's going to say. Oh, it was an intense hockey game, playoff type hockey, 1-0 till the end, and sometimes the pucks don't bounce your way. That's exactly what he's going to say.
You sound just like him, Russ.
Yeah, we've heard it countless times, and yeah, that's been the philosophy of how they want to play games. They want to win games 2-1. They want to win games 1-0. If they give up more than 3 goals, that's probably a loss in their column, even though they might still win. But yeah, that's just how they want to win games. So, and like, just to kind of and talk more about the trade like aspect, and if they do want to make moves, like, what gives you confidence in this management group to make the right move? There's not one. And even if they do make the right move, which we all thought, like me and Joe at least thought that the PL Dubois move was the right move, turned out to be not to be one. look how it's working out for Washington. Working out pretty damn well for them. They're being talked about. There's stories written about him, how he's turned his life around, how he's this new guy. Like their confidence in Carberry's going to win the Coach of the Year award because he's turned the ball around. What? Like how does Kings management not look at themselves in the mirror and say, what did we do wrong here? What happened? Not only the move that you did to get rid of Velarde and Durzi and Kupari and Iafallo, but now you traded away, and look how he's flourishing in Washington. Perfect. That's like how good would this Kings team be if PLD played like that here? Like that's exactly the Kings would be great. It'd be a great team. And now, like Joe said, he has more points combined than Dano and Byfield, who are supposed to be your two of your top nine centers. Look at yourself in the mirror. What's going on wrong? It's you. It's you. You have to say, it's what am I doing wrong? It's me. Like that's the frustrating part because you like Randy, we go back to you. Like we go to that same thing where you see all these players just leave and all of a sudden they start flourishing. So you have to say, like, what are we doing wrong? What's going wrong here? And that's why it's like yeah, like we can talk about trade deadline stuff and what players we want to watch and like wish lists and whatever, but I have no confidence that they're going to make the right move and the move that they're going to make the players even going to fit well here because it hasn't worked in the past and I have no confidence it's going to work in the future.
You think they're going to be buyers though?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Or do you think it's going to be this? Or you think it's going to be the same thing as last year? They're just going to sit pat and do nothing.
Like it's funny because I was actually talking to my wife about this like earlier today, and then I told her like, hey, they've been going through this like slump and whatever, and she's like, well, they've been on the road for a long time, haven't they? And I was thinking like, yeah, she's right. Like you got to look at the stretch they're on, and that's kind of where I'm not really sounding the alarms on this season. I'm actually I went into this road trip thinking like it's going to be tough to grab some points here because you look at this 12-game stretch that they're on after the postponement against that game at home to Calgary. You go on the road for 5 games up starting in Winnipeg and end in Seattle, where you go to Edmonton and Calgary back-to-back, Vancouver. You're home for 4 days. You play 2 games at home. So you have that 5-game road trip. You're home for 4 days. Then you go on another road trip for 5 games, another brutal stretch of games against teams like Florida, Tampa Bay, Carolina. Like that's tough for any team to go through. So that's why it's kind of like I'm not necessarily like sounding the alarms and DEFCON 5, whatever. Like it is what it is. This is a team. They're gonna after this road trip is over, they'll have played 50 games. 31 of those have been on the road. That's gonna like take a dent out of any team's energy. So like I'm not gonna really fully evaluate this team until we get to like March or whatever and see like what happens after they get this 4 nations break. And then after they get these longer stretch of home games, because this is a team that plays really well at home. They have one of the best, if not the best, record at home. So we can't really fully evaluate this team until they get to like game 60 or whatnot.
I don't know. I think we can evaluate the team. I don't know. I mean, they've played enough games now. I think we had a pretty good idea of what they are in terms of like an evaluation standpoint. I guess if you mean maybe in terms of buyers or sellers and kind of where they fall in that range, like yeah, like. So if Calgary wins tonight, for those that are unaware, like Kings are 3rd in the division right now. They're 2 points up on the second wild card, which is Vancouver, and only 3 points up on the non-playoff Calgary Flames. However, the Calgary Flames lead right now after 2, and that could mean the Kings are just 2 points out of a non-playoff.
The Flames are talking about rebuild. The rebuild was being thrown away around from Conroy.
Yeah. So, that said, the grip on the playoffs has definitely weakened, but I still think they make it. I think. I know it's grim right now, but to Russ's point, it's a tough trip right now. But I haven't thought they would be big time buyers just because they don't have big time assets. They don't have many prospects. I think the only guy that they've got prospect wise that's really worth much is holy cow, Greentree, holy cow, Liam Greentree. I guess you could say the goalies are in that mix. They have a first round pick, but I don't think that they're going to trade from a very thin prospect pool. So really, then you're talking about a first. They don't have a second this year. So is this team? They would have to say we are X player away from making a run in playoffs. So we're going to trading the first round pick. And I just don't know that. To me, where I see the holes on this team, if I'm putting myself in Rob Blake's shoes, that he's going to want to fill is that fourth line. This team is, I think they could use another depth player. I can see them making a run at a depth forward, or maybe somebody to push a LaFerriere, or I don't know, maybe pushes somebody down the lineup. I don't think they're going to go for like a top six scorer. I wouldn't be surprised if they add a depth forward and or a defenseman, which is kind of crazy because they've got 9 of them. But I think they just like having Englund around for protection for the team. Must be for the organization. Even if he's not on the ice, he's just around.
He's just a bodyguard in general.
Yes, so you just like him. So, but I wouldn't be surprised, because I don't know. They clearly don't. I don't think they trust Clarke in a playoff. I don't know that they trust Spence. I'll believe it that they trust Mo Verari when I see it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go out and get somebody to try to upgrade Mo Verari. So I don't know though who they have to trade, which is kind of why I keep coming back to Spence. He seems to be a guy that the Kings doesn't really fit how the Kings want to play, but he's a young right shot defenseman that are in incredible demand all the time. So maybe there's Spence for something there, but I don't think they're big players.
You ever see that picture of that Cleveland Browns jersey that had all those names of the quarterbacks that have played for the team? Yes. I think we should make one for all the right shot defensemen that have get traded from LA. I think that would be a good one.
The burial ground shirt.
Seriously. Oh my God.
At this point, I think that they're really keen on keeping Gavrikov and Anderson together. If Anderson's obviously healthy. It's 2 games in a row now? They've gone to that?
Yep.
With everybody, with 9 defensemen on the roster?
Yep.
And that there was no concern with Doughty's fatigue. So obviously after yesterday. So they felt totally comfortable running him back out there with the same defensive partner that he had in Jacob Overara and keeping Gavrikov and Anderson together.
Oliver Figlin on Twitter, or Clark for Norris, he said the Kings really had Roy, Dursey, Walker, Faber, Grons, Velarde, Kupari, Iafallo, Kaliev, Bjornfoot, a 22 first and a 23 first, and turned them into Kemper, Fiala, $2 million of retained salary, and Gavrikov.
Sounds about right.
When you put it into that perspective, I'm like, holy mackerel! I don't know. To me, it's I don't know how. Does management not care? Does ownership not care? Hey, we're winning hockey games, like you said, Joe. We're making money. Does it really matter? Man, I don't know.
Well, this quote from Hiller, this is from Andrew Knoll on Twitter. Hiller says, "I don't think it's ever going to get in." I'm assuming at the puck going in the net at a really high rate for us. That's clear, but it's going to go in more than it is. What does that mean? How?
That goes.
I guess more than 0.
That goes back to the same comment he gave when I asked him about Fiala. That goes the PDO. He's looking at the PDO and just thinking that it'll eventually regress to the mean. And he thinks that eventually, I don't know what their on-ice shooting percentage is. I'm going to
go look right now. It's exactly what I was going to go look for, Russ.
It's probably not high. So I'm guessing he's just referring to that but even then, in terms of I think I was looking at it yesterday. Their high danger chances are middle of the pack in the NHL. Their low danger chances are top 5, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah,
their shooting percentage is middle of the pack, right right where it always is. It's 8.8. That's where they live. Mm-hmm. That is where they live. Go look at their shooting percentage from the 23-20. I'll do it while I'm here. But this is the whole thing. They're a 5-on-5 shooting percentage team, and this is why I pushed back about earlier in the season when they were shooting 12% or whatever. Why would they all of a sudden just be better shooters? They're not creating better chances. Last year they shot 7.86% at 5-on-5. this is what this team does. So the idea that they're going to shoot, granted, on this recent stretch, they're scoring like literally zero. So yes, it will be, they will score more than zero. But this is a true talent, 8% shooting percent team. We've seen this year in and year out. So when the dust settles, they had a shooting percentage of really high early in the season. It's obviously really low right now. This is a team that's in that 8% range. So yes, he's, I guess, technically right that it is going to go in a little bit more. But this team, he also said, we're never going to score at a high rate. Other teams are. Edmonton is. Vegas can. Colorado will. Dallas will. These are who you're playing.
14 other teams score at a higher rate.
So don't you think that's a problem?
Out of all the teams in the playoffs or in a playoff spot, we are last in goals for.
Shocker. But hey, we got that top-ranked Elite D.
Elite D.
We also don't even have the least amount of goals given up either. So it can't be that elite. HOPENY 2, shocker. Quote.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, and as we sit here, and I know this trade, while it's still not finalized, but it very much is looking like Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost for Kuzmenko and Jacob Pelletier. That makes Calgary a better team.
Yep.
I think
those are better players.
Farabee and Frost are better players than
Pelletier screams Philadelphia Flyer, though. That's
yes, he's
a great player. They're gonna love that guy.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see.
In the face.
Yeah, we'll see what other is involved in this deal, picks, prospects, whatever. But like, again, that's a shrewd deal that Conroy is able to pull off without really. We'll see if they're able to trade if they've traded any futures or whatever. But again, I don't know that the Kings have a ton of assets to trade, and I just don't know that it really matters. And
assets you want them to trade at this point. Why would you want them to trade their first round pick?
I don't.
Right.
Does anybody know? Yeah, I'm sure majority of Kings fans would agree that nobody wants to see them trade that pick. They already traded a second round and fourth, fifth rounder for Janelle.
Who was that for again, Russ?
Tanner Janelle.
That's right.
And he has 4 goals? He's playing fourth line minutes and
148 hits though.
But he leads the team in hits, guys. Second round pick.
Bringing that uncomfortable playing style that we're starting to all get.
That I'm uncomfortable watching.
Exactly.
Oh,
so it's funny, Joe, because when you were talking about like them trading for a fourth liner, I'm like, that already happened. They already did that. So what are they going to do? Trade some more draft picks for a middling Zach McEwen type player? Like,
no. I don't know if this is just we're just venting, but like, in fairness to the organization, for a second here, the Quentin Byfield, this is a problem.
Yeah, 100%.
Like,
not enough blame is being put on Byfield right now.
What's that?
No, I was gonna say, not enough blame is being put on Q because I think I told you this, Joe, yesterday or somebody, that like there's been so much criticism on Trevor Moore and whatnot. He's got a higher point per game total than Byfield. He's getting paid less than Byfield. He's probably getting harder matchups than Byfield. So, and that's what I said at the beginning of the season. This team is only going to go as far as Quentin Byfield takes them because he's being put in the center position. He's getting paid, $6 million a year now. So he got rewarded for his performance last year. And he's what's the pace? Like, we're curious to see like what his pace is now compared to what Dubois' pace was last year. And all the criticism that Dubois is getting. And obviously it's totally different because like there's effort question marks and nobody's questioning Byfield's effort, but production needs to be there. Like, you're being paid to produce for this team, and you're not at this moment.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some criticism pointed his way.
If we're being fair, like there's a heavy amount of criticism being laid on to your point from the fan base on Twitter and stuff like that on the likes of Trevor Moore, Philippe Deneau, which I go back and I maintain Philippe Deneau, I think, is playing fine. The production's not there, but the production probably, it shouldn't be this bad. But Philippe Deneau is still a really, really good defensive center. He's a good two-way center. The offense isn't there, but I think he's being miscast and playing too many minutes. So I don't know that I'm as hard on Deneau. I'm more harder on like Hiller / Byfield, chicken or the egg. Like Hiller should be playing Byfield as in a more 2C kind of quote unquote, but then again, Byfield ain't exactly doing a whole lot to take those reins from it. So, and I has the same problem I had last year with the Dubois thing. Why Deneau was playing more than Dubois and role, quote unquote, bothered me. But like, I don't think Deneau is as big of an issue. But, for a lot of the heat as some guys are taking, I don't think QB is getting nearly enough. And if we're being fair, this isn't good enough. This is not good enough. And I'm done with the age thing. I'm done with the years thing. I'm done with it. It's not good enough. You got your contract. It is time, and it hasn't happened.
Once you get the money, that's where the criticism starts coming in. If you're not producing for it, and I'm getting to the point where it's like just put him back up with Kopitar and Kempe, and put Turcotte back down the middle, because I loved what I saw from Turcotte, Fogle, and Laferriere. I thought those three. I don't know why they haven't gone back to those three, because I felt like they had a lot of momentum. As soon as they were put together, too, that clicked right away. And for some reason, they don't want to go back to it.
Yeah.
So, Byfield, Kopitar, and Kempe has worked in the past. And I know that it's tough because we're all set on Byfield being the center and being the franchise center, but it's not working. We're not seeing it. And even in the matchup department, he needs to produce. He's not being paid to just be this shut down guy who's going to shut down other players. Like, he needs to score goals.
Yeah. And I think I want to see I would put Turcotte, Russ. You know who I'd put Turcotte with? I'd put Turcotte with Moore and Fiala, or Fiala and Laferriere. I'd get Fiala somebody with that a little bit more playmaking ability, that Deneau just doesn't have, but we've seen it from Turcotte throughout the season. And then you get Deneau and Fogle and Laferriere. I think that could be a really good third line, frankly. I think you got to get Fiala somebody with a little bit more creativity. Turcotte seems to just play well with whoever he's put with. So I don't know if we've seen a whole lot of Turcotte and Fiala off the top of my head. It feels like if we have, maybe it was early in the season, but I would try that next. If you're looking for ways to generate offense, I agree. I'd move Byfield back up with Kopi and Kempe. I would put Turcotte with Fiala, and then either Moore or Laferriere. Deneau with Fogle, and either Moore or Laferriere. And I'd kind of roll it like that and see what shakes out. I would scratch Lewis and feed ice time to Byfield on that wing or center with Hellenius and Jeannot. Feed Fiala more ice when you can. Get Clarke back in, and you play 7 defensemen. It sounds like Mikey Anderson is going to probably at least be unavailable for Saturday, if I had to guess. So Clarke's going to slide back in. I would put in Burrows too, I guess, just to give you the 7, and roll with that. That's how I would approach Carolina on Saturday.
Yeah, totally agree.
You had me until scratch Lewis, because we all know that's not going to happen.
It's true. That was a little bit
so crazy. Like that. Those 2 penalties he took in the Tampa game. The second one pretty much lost him the game, because they ended up in the 5-on-3. It was 2-0. Game was over, and he was out there his next shift. Didn't miss a shift. And I know, obviously he's been the journeyman. He's 1,000+ games in the NHL. He's kind of earned a little bit more of a reputation, respect in terms of coaching staff. But it's kind of hard, I'm sure, as a younger player, when you maybe take bad penalties like the one that Laferriere took against McDavid, and maybe that one was a little bit more of on the clown side of things. But even then, when you see a player like Lewis go in there and just offensive zone penalty, it pretty much kills your momentum in the third period, and he's right back out there for a next shift. As a young player, I'm thinking like, okay, how come his responsibility doesn't fall on him when it just falls on me? It's kind of a tough situation to be in.
I mean, it's one thing. It's one thing if like it was Kempe. Guys fill in that. So you know what? If he has a little frustration, or when Fiala a couple years ago, every now and then he'd take a slashing penalty or something. Well, he was approaching 80 points. So, you maybe let it slide a little bit. But what exactly, and respectfully, what is on ice? What is Lewis bringing to the table here?
Yeah.
And I don't want to hear the defensive play. I'm so sick of this. Like, the team's already good defensively. We get it. Congrats. You got to score in this league if you want to win.
Like, I don't see how bringing in players, like subbing out players for certain players, like bringing in Hellenius for Lewis or Clarke for even like Edmondson or whatnot, like makes this team worse defensively.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
Genuinely doesn't.
We haven't seen those play like it's few and far between that I can think of moments where I'm thinking like, oh, Clarke got beat bad there, or Hellenius looked really out of place there, or even Andre Lee at times looked really out of place there. Like, this team plays hard. They really have a care for it to focus on the defensive side of the game. So I have no concern with that, with whoever's in the lineup in terms of the defensive side of the game, because it seems like whoever's playing, the Kings are going to give up 3 or less goals in the game, 2 or maybe it's most of the time 2 or less goals in the game, but they're not going to score because of these players that are in the lineup.
Yeah, well, the irony of today is that he gave up 18 high danger chances. If it wasn't for Big Save Dave, this game could have been 5-0.
Oh man! Shout out to Dave, because you can tell like the game. What was the last game he played where he just was just lost? It was at home.
Pittsburgh? Did he play Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh, yeah. He just got lit up in the Pittsburgh game. And you can tell, like, I saw him after the game. He was just pissed. Just, like, usually is this kind of, like, happy-go-lucky, like, jokester kind of guy. And you can just tell he was just angry with himself. And you could tell today he just, like, really wanted to make up for it. And he did. Like, yeah, shout out to Riddich. He played out of his mind today. One of the best games I've seen him play in a Kings uniform. I thought he was incredible. That glove save he made, diving back, ridiculous. And it just sucks to see a performance like that kind of get lost, because he would be the talk of the night if they had pulled out this game.
For a second he was, because he made some of those big saves, and then it looked like the Kings tied it on the Byfield, and then they didn't. On the replay, they got overturned for offside. So for a second, like, you don't know,
4 goals in the last 3 games overturned, or was it 3 in the last 4, something like that?
Something like that, dude.
The Columbus game, I think, yeah, there was one, another offside one, and tonight, yeah.
Usually the offside ones, there's not really much arguing in them. Like,
tonight,
for a while tonight, I was like, man, he had possession of that puck, but I guess when you watch it and slow it back down, then Jim Fox broke it down really nicely, as he usually does. You can see, you know, the offside ones are, you know, I get why people don't like the replay rule, because it's like, really, we're going to call it off because he was offside by like a skate blade. But he was offside. Like, so like technically I can sleep okay at night knowing that, like, at least the right call was made. I get it. I don't love the replay situation, but whatever. But like, so I don't know, like, I get it. They've had calls come back, but you know, they've also won plenty of challenges too. And nobody seems to have an issue when Jim Hiller calls and wins a bunch of challenges in a row. So let's
goalie interference one against New Jersey that they won. That was really kind of
right. Like, nobody, we're good when LA uses it, so it happens.
The one that LaFerriere got called back on in Columbus, the thing that pissed me off about that one was the amount of time that they gave Columbus.
Yes, that was I didn't like that.
On, man. Like,
agreed.
How long do they get? Like, it should be like maybe 10, 20 seconds.
And didn't Everson almost like brush off the referee after a long time and say basically, like, you know, we're not going to do it. And then, like, right before puck drop, he goes, wait a minute, we're going to do it.
Yeah. No. Tonight it was fine. Like, I even watched it. Like, yeah, it was offside. It is what it is. So tough, whatever.
I thought he had control of the puck, but.
So I guess it was
he did, but the thing is, so he goes into he enters the zone, he has control of the puck, and the puck's outside. He's onside. but as soon as he passes the puck, when the puck's outside, he relinquishes control. So technically, as soon as he passed it and the puck crossed the blue line, he's the one who's offside because he's It's, I remember
if
the
he
Cale
carried it in,
McCarr, I think Cale McCarr happened to him in the playoffs against the Oilers. I think kind of the same situation. But
if he brought it in, Randon, and maintained possession coming into the zone, then passed it, it's fine. But because he passed it before the puck crossed the blue line, that's what it is. So either way, but hey, find ways to score that aren't getting called back.
We're not pleading, please. We just want one.
Yeah,
but I mean that goal could have changed the game.
It could, it could have. It could have. They could have lost 3-1 instead of 3-0. You're right. It could have. That's not nice. I shouldn't have said that.
Probably,
but you did because it's the truth. Well, I mean, I just don't know what to think of this team. I mean, obviously, we're probably going to be in the playoff hunt, and
yeah.
I if it were me, I just don't think this team's winning.
Well, so I'll say this: like I said this after the really good stretches earlier, and I'm not all that changed even now, where I thought this team is not good enough to beat the top teams. They're not good enough to beat Edmonton. I don't think they're good enough to beat Colorado. I don't think they're good enough to beat Dallas. Probably don't think they're good enough to beat Winnipeg. Probably Minnesota would be a series, but TBD on Minnesota, I guess. Maybe that's where the line is. So top 5 teams in the West, at least who I think are the top 5 teams in the West, they're not going to beat. Okay. And I'm talking in a series. I'm not talking on March 17th when they play Colorado and they beat them at home and the Kings are the best home team in the history of hockey. Holy cow, they're going to be fine. I mean, in a 7-game series. Vegas. Did I not mention Vegas? Thanks, Chicken. Yeah, Vegas is another one. Like I don't think they're going to beat Vegas. But like if they now this is all becoming kind of moot because for a while we're like, well, hey, they were approaching the division. Maybe they can catch the second wild card and play a Vancouver or a Calgary, and I think they can beat one of those teams. I'm still there. Like I think this team can get through Calgary if they played, but they ain't looking like they're going to play them because the way the standings are really starting. There's some separation now between Vegas and Edmonton and the rest of the division. So this is where the problem becomes is, while, yeah, I think they can probably beat Vancouver, maybe Calgary, although we'll see what this trade looks like at the end of it. Like, I still think that this is the same. I'm in the same spot. I don't think they're good enough to beat the top teams because they can't score. I think they can beat in the right matchup some of these other teams. It's just hard to see them get those matchups when you're going to finish third in the division or in the wild card.
Do you think they match up okay with Winnipeg?
So, I mean, I don't think Winnipeg is as good as their record is, but it's hard to sell me that the Kings will beat them when they're trying to score on Connor Hellebuck. And they're going against a team that, even if 5-on-5, Winnipeg maybe is a little playing over their skis, that's a heck of a power play. And that it wouldn't be the first time that a power play did in, and I know it ain't the Oilers power play, but it's one of the best power plays in the NHL right now. And so I think there's just enough firepower in Winnipeg that I think, and plus Hellebuck, like I think that, like, I don't think it's like I don't think they can't. It's like I'm gonna say they can't beat Edmonton. That's where I'm like they will not beat the Oilers. I think they could beat Winnipeg, but I don't think it's likely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of this kind of hubbub going on social media from fans and even probably us as well. It's just probably recency bias, obviously, with the whole Brant Clarke thing and they're getting shut out twice. Yeah, like there's going to be a lot of uproar with everything going on. So I get it. Like, it is what it is. Like I'm with Joe too. Like my thoughts on this team hasn't changed even after this January stretch that they're in. I still think they're going to make the playoffs. I still think they'll probably be a 3rd seed in the Pacific Division, end up playing Edmonton or Vegas, and they will lose in that first round. That's just what I've said, probably what we've said, I think, throughout the entire season, because this team, just the way that they play, the style, the way that they play, and the players that they have, just probably is not going to beat those good teams. So yeah, Joe, you summed it up best. It's just we just want to see some. Maybe I think what gets frustrating with, especially when you sit players like Brant Clarke, because then you're thinking like, okay, like, is Hiller thinking like this is the team that's going to win him games? Or is it like, are you overlooking the fact that maybe I should be giving my next generational defender like actual minutes and giving him like development time as opposed to just trying to win games with players like Edmondson and Anderson and Gavrikov playing 20-plus minutes a night?
I mean, look at Calgary. They were going into a rebuild. They were getting rid of all their older players and letting their young players play, and they're winning hockey games. And we were winning hockey games with our young guys in. Like, if it were me, I'd be trading away or cutting, for gosh sakes, Trevor Lewis. I'd be cutting Anglin, all these guys. I'd be letting Hellenius play. I'd be letting Andre Lee play. Akil Thomas, have a fourth line of youth, guys that are hungry to earn spots on a roster. And Brant Clarke should be getting, the second most minutes behind Drew Doughty on the right side per night. He should be running the power play too, at least. Like, you should be playing these young guys that are supposed to be there. Like, it doesn't, I don't understand. Like, the term like veteran presence has become like the same thing as unmeasurables or intangibles for me.
Yeah.
It's like these all these guys have played hockey games their entire life. They're not a bunch of rookies. Like, how much more veteran presence do you need? Like, the whole top 9 has guys that have been in the league for pretty much 5 years plus besides Byfield. So, like, you don't need Trevor Lewis to have veteran presence on the fourth line. You don't need Joel Edmondson to be a veteran on the third pairing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just looking at for the season. They've got the 5th highest PDO in the NHL this year.
Wow.
I mean,
Their save percentage has got to be pretty high, though.
Yes, their save percentage at 5-on-5 is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th best. Yeah.
Oh man, this whole this whole PL Dubois thing is just. I love that he's thriving in Washington. To be honest with you, like it's perfect. It's so fitting that like they felt the need to, instead of trying to maybe fix it internally, they just discarded him for a goaltender that they now have to play, who's playing great. Kemper, obviously playing great. There was Vezina talk, but you already had a 35-plus-year-old goaltender last year in Cam Talbot, who was an all-star playing for you, and you only signed him for $1 million, and you probably could have signed him again for another $1 million this year, and he'd probably still be, maybe even still be an all-star, putting up similar numbers because you have this defensive group who's the best in terms of expected goals against in the NHL.
But now well in Detroit too.
Yeah, and now you have a goaltender who you're paying $5+ million, who's playing really well. Like, not going to discredit it, but you're paying him 5x what you were paying the same production you got from last year, with less production down the middle of the ice, or even the same down the middle of the ice. So now there's been no change. It's the same thing. Right. We're really in the same boat that we were last year. We're just now paying more money to the goaltender as opposed to more money to the second line center. And it's almost kind of both, because now you're paying Quentin Byfield $6 million, you're paying your goaltender $5 million. What did you gain?
Exactly.
Frustrations. I don't know. I think it's frustrating being a fan of a team that you don't have the same view of, like, philosophy wise. Like, I just get frustrated.
Well,
yes, well said, Rendon. That's right.
That's perfect, because it seems like they want to take one step forward and then 2 steps back. And it's just an unconventional, I guess, like, not like traditional mindset that they have, that they don't ever want to change, that everyone else seems to be wanting to try at least, but they think that this is the way that's going to win them games, and it's not.
There hasn't been an acquisition that they've made. Well, maybe Gavrikov has flourished here more than his previous spots, but like a player coming here and they've played better than where they came from, or they play better when they leave. Like, they haven't developed any elite players. Like, any player that Rob Blake.
Kempe.
No, Rob Blake did not draft Adrian Kempe.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You're talking.
Yeah, that they picked and say, hey, this guy's going to be elite. They They didn't draft and develop anybody.
Velarde.
He's better on another team.
Yeah, but they traded him. He developed into a pretty good player, and it took some time. But yeah, it's few and far between. I'll give you that. It's a very short list.
It's just.
I mean, you can go up and you can go down the first round picks, Brandon. Like, yeah, I agree with you.
I think, yeah. I mean, they're getting some. I mean, they got a lot of. I can't remember who put this out. I know they were like top 3 in like getting NHL games out of people drafted from the 3rd round on. Like they found some gems in the later rounds that have contributed as starters, for the team. But elite players win championships, man. And like we can't keep just like playing this 5-on-5 stuff and not having people take over a game every once in a while. Like you have a couple of those players in the ice, but you don't let them play that way.
Yeah,
like everybody loves it. Everybody's online like cheering for Fiala, or like when Clarke does a 360 and hits Kopitar right by the net on a beautiful pass. Like, okay, like those are game breaking type plays, and they take over a game. Yeah, but let's not do that. Let's not do that too much. Tim Stützle would not be Tim Stützle on this team. He'd be an afterthought.
Yes, he'd probably still be in the AHL.
They'd ship him off to Germany. I don't know. Like it frustrates me. And I to be honest with you, it's like I don't have any confidence in this team. I'll probably get sucked in again with some good stretch of good play in home games and right before the playoffs. But realistically, if you want like a realistic outlook, like if Randon was put on a GM hat, I'd be selling. I'd be looking at this team like, hey, I can't, not like fire sell, like let's tear it down to the studs again, because I don't think that's what you want to do. But Gavrikoff's a free agent. I'd be trading him. I'd be cutting Trevor Lewis. I'd be letting some players that are on expiring contracts go, get whatever picks you could get, retool in the offseason, and then, and try something different. Like, I don't understand, and it makes it, and there's so many coaches and GMs that adapt, and it doesn't seem like Rob Blake ever adapts to anything. I listened to Sean McVay the other day about his coaching style, and he said, I learned a lot of things from Lee and Cohen and the way he ran the Bucs offense this year. I'm going to adapt some of that into my offense next year about how he utilized his running backs. And Sean McVay has won a Super Bowl and is an offensive mastermind, and he's taking things from other coaches like, hey, I really like the way they do that. Like, let's implement that here.
Yeah, again, like you said, Brandon, just a little while ago about philosophy and how the team wants to play. The most frustrating part of it is we know, everybody knows, the league knows, because 25 other teams are choosing to play a different way. Like, that's not by accident. That you have to score goals these days to win. You have to have defensemen that can play with a little bit more freedom, that can play with the puck a little bit more. You have to be able to play this way. And the Kings we've talked about this. They're going to double down. They triple down. They're quadrupling down. So to your point, Randon, yes, like about, trading this guy or that guy, like I can see that, but all they're going to do is just bring back guys that are the same mold, just different names, because this organization is the same organization that signs a Joel Edmondson for 4 years times $3.85 million, despite the fact that he is borderline. I'm going to say this. I'm trying to be nice, like on ice, because listen, when I say this stuff, I'm obviously not in the room, and I don't want to discount the fact that some of these guys are probably phenomenal teammates, and I do not want to overlook the, getting guys comfortable, getting young players comfortable, and I do think that stuff matters, and I can appreciate that. On ice, Joel Edmondson is an irrelevant player in today's day and age. I'm sorry, and you signed him to such a deal when you had his clone in Andreas Englund for dirt cheap. Like, obviously we didn't like it, but he made nothing. So if you decided to do that, you understood it. But that's the problem, is this team brings in these types of players, which is why I think Gavrikov probably sticks around, because this is what, and he's been great. He's been a great defensive defenseman who's going to get more money probably than he should be for the lack of offense that he brings to the table. But this is how the Kings want to win games. And I've said this repeatedly. They're about 15 years past where they need to be. Like
Frank Ciravelli saying still waiting completion of the deal, but as I know it to be, that shapes up as Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost for Jacob Pelletier, Andre Kuzmenko, a second and a seventh.
A second. That's pretty good for Calgary.
It's very good.
And Calgary, speaking of, has taken a 3-1 lead. So they will leapfrog Vancouver and be 1 point behind the LA Kings for third in the division, and Vancouver will be I genuinely thought that the Kings were pretty comfortable. Shame on me in a playoff spot, but this is real tight now. We got a race.
And it's not like they have the easiest schedule going forward. They're about 15th.
Well, the home games are going to help. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I'm not. Yeah, like I said, I'm not.
So they have one game against the Capitals, 2 against Edmonton, 2 against Vegas, 2 against Carolina, 2 against Dallas, 1 against Winnipeg.
I mean, they're going to have 22 home games remaining out of the 30-something games.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, they're in, in terms of making playoffs, I think they're in an all right spot. But obviously it's just not as comfortable as it was a week or two ago.
It feels weird wanting to root against your team that you like, but it's like you almost wish that they would just go on a dumpster fire dive and start selling at the deadline. We'd have a lot more tinfoil hat segments for everybody because I'd be talking about all types of trades for trading away. But I think we've kind of pretty much beat a dead horse. I think I just need a little time,
It was a nice venting session.
Yeah. It feels good. Hit the like button on the way out. You guys were pretty strong in the chat. Thank you guys for being here. You guys are phenomenal. We are nothing without our fans. So appreciate that. Hit the like button on the way out. For all of our articles, hit hockeyroyalty.com. We still have some t-shirts on sale. So hit Russ up for some t-shirts. He'll give you all kinds of deals because they're just burning a hole in his secondary bedroom there in Los Angeles. And follow us here on X at hockey_royalty at Random Commando 24, JW Paterino, and NHL Russell for all your rain news. Kopitar for HOF from Kyle Garcia. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Hopefully we can have some happier podcasts going forward. But you just need a little venting session every once in a while, a little therapy, and I'll get right back on the horse for Saturday. So, as always on this podcast, go Kings, go.